Welcome, educators. Let's jump right in. Today, we're diving into an explainer that is honestly going to fundamentally transform how you approach teaching creative writing to your youngest primary school students. If you work with grade 1 learners, you already know that the journey from learning basic words to actually writing a creative piece, well, it can feel like a massive, almost impossible leap. But this explainer is your blueprint. We're going to turn that massive leap into a series of small, successful, and most importantly, confident steps. I want you to think back to that incredibly common and, often frustrating classroom moment. You've got a kid in front of you. You know for a fact they have this brilliant, vibrant imagination, right? They can verbally tell you these amazing, sprawling tales. But the very second you ask them to put a pencil to paper and write a story, boom, they just freeze. Total deer in the headlights. It's a disconnect that puzzles so many of us. But what if the problem actually isn't their imagination? And what if it isn't even their writing ability? What if it's the sequence of how we're asking them to do it? Here is absolutely crucial point number 1. A child cannot build a story from confusion. That is the core philosophy of this entire method. When we ask a young student to quote-unquote be creative before they can fully control a basic sentence, we are accidentally creating massive cognitive overload. It's literally asking them to sprint before they can even balance on 2 feet. As educators, our primary job in these early stages is to establish complete, absolute clarity before we ever demand creativity. Okay, so how do we do that? Well, let's talk about laying the first brick. Let's get one thing straight right away. A simple sentence is never, ever too basic. It's actually the vital starting point. You see, writing isn't just a random pile of bricks. It's a growing, connected system. Think about a quiet neighborhood street. Every single house needs a very clear address, right? Because if the addresses are confusing, nobody knows where to go. A sentence works the exact same way. It gives the reader a clear, stable place to stand inside that child's idea. If that single, foundational brick isn't placed clearly, literally nothing else can be built on top of it. We really have to deconstruct this major misconception. It's this myth that good writing needs to immediately look fancy. A lot of kids, bless their hearts, will try to cram in big, fancy words or extra details way too early. But decoration without meaning? That is essentially like putting colorful, sparkly stickers on an empty box. Sure, the outside looks busy and bright, but the core message inside is still completely unclear. Writing has to grow from meaning. We need to focus simply on who or what is happening and make sure the reader doesn't have to guess. Once we have that meaning down, we start growing through layers. Children do not just magically move from writing one sentence to crafting full paragraphs in a single jump. There's no magic wand here. They need a logical sequence. First, they say one clear idea. Second, they add a useful detail. Third, and this is the absolute most important part, they have to ensure the sentence remains totally understandable. By walking through this exact 3-part sequence, a child becomes a stronger writer layer by layer. We are building stability here, not just length, because if the base of a block tower is weak, the whole thing just comes crashing down. Let's watch this concept in action. We start with something super simple. The cat sleeps. It's completely clear. Then, layer by layer, it stretches. The sleepy cat sleeps on the soft mat near the window. Do you see what happened there? The sentence didn't just get longer, it got stronger. It's carrying much more useful meaning while remaining perfectly stable. This is exactly how you guide a primary student to expand their writing confidently. But here is where kids often stumble, and we really need to clarify a very important distinction. At the beginning, a child's thoughts are almost always way ahead of their language. They've got the imagination, but they don't have the shape for it yet. Think of it kind of like trying to steer a bicycle before you understand how to balance. The bike just wobbles all over the place. Creative writing is actually about learning to guide that raw, brilliant imagination using the structured shape of language. Because once they can control the shape, they realize their thoughts can actually be shared with the world. So, practically speaking in your classroom, you'll start to notice how these small, achievable successes actually compound. One thought becomes one clear sentence. Okay, great. Once they master that, that clear sentence becomes a sentence with detail. Eventually, several of those related sentences become a short piece of writing which then blossoms into a simple story. It's not magic. It's not some sudden burst of inherent talent. It's a highly predictable, step-by-step system of growth. Which brings us to the next major phase. Building independent writers. Now, independence does not mean just dropping a child in the deep end of the pool and hoping they swim. To prevent our students from freezing up, we need 3 key pillars of support. First is idea support.
using things like pictures or shared experiences so that blank page doesn't feel quite so terrifying. Second is language support, providing reusable patterns. And third is confidence support, actively reinforcing what they are doing right. We are effectively keeping the training wheels on the bicycle until they naturally find their own balance.
You know, a lot of people think repetition is the enemy of creativity. It's really not. Think about learning to play a musical instrument. You practice the exact same notes over and over until your hands just know where to go. Providing safe, familiar patterns like I see a blank or the blank is blank gives young students the hands-on control they desperately need right now. Once they feel safe inside that pattern, that's when variation and true creativity become possible.
And that leads us perfectly into the third pillar, confidence. Look, if a child expects every single attempt to be marked up with a red pen, they are going to stop taking risks. Period. They'll just write less to avoid making mistakes. As a teacher, you have to actively adjust your feedback loop. Don't just hunt for errors to fix. Ask yourself, what did they do well? What is the absolute next small step they can take? And crucially, what errors can I just leave alone for now? Building that emotional safety is honestly just as important as teaching them grammar.
All of this paves the path to true confidence.
So here is the golden rule I want you to remember. Creativity grows inside structure, not outside it. For a grade 1 learner, creativity isn't about inventing some wild, highly original fantasy epic from scratch. Not at all. Creativity begins the exact moment a child can finally make their own choices within a safe, established structure. It's choosing this word instead of that one. It's choosing to add a specific detail instead of leaving it blank. Your goal isn't to remove your support early. It's to make your support gradually invisible as they start making their own choices. I absolutely love this thought. Strong creative writing begins when a child stops borrowing every thought and starts trusting their own. That is the ultimate goal of the Builder's Blueprint. We are taking them from managed, heavily scaffolded language and, step by step, transforming it into an independent, confident voice. They're moving from just answering prompts to actually thinking like writers. So I want to leave you with this final thought as you head back into your classrooms. You've got the system now. You know that confidence comes from clarity and control. When you look at your students, don't look for what they're missing. Look for what stage of control they are currently in, and ask yourself, what small, successful step will you help your students take today to lay their very first clear brick? Thank you so much for exploring this explainer with me. I really hope it empowers you to build some incredible, confident young writers.